Y'all, today we need to talk about a brand new feature on Wizard101 that is truly exposing something unbelievable about this game. The topic of the day, second chance chests, and the drop rate preview feature now that we have it on PC server. If y'all don't know about all of this, when Wiz released on console, due to certain transparency conditions on those consoles, Wiz basically had to reveal the drop rates of every item in second chance chests. This feature is now in PC ever since the Darkmoor update. What this means is, right, let's say that you fight a boss and it has a second chance chest. Every single, important boss has one. You could open it and you could actually see the drop rate for every item that the boss can drop. Now, the reason for this is because these second chance chests cost crowns, real life money, to get that second chance, the third chance, the fourth chance of getting the drop that you want. And while the transparency is great, what it has done is expose the drop rates of some of the rarest items in game. And I really wanted to talk about some of the most crazy numbers that I've seen ever since this update dropped. And I think it's a real opportunity for Wiz to maybe revisit some of the wildest things in this game. I'm actually going to start off with the most egregious thing that I've ever seen, which is actually the Baba Yaga second chance chest. This is a screenshot of what I think is right now the rarest drop in the game. The spellproof opal from Baba Yaga is a 1 in 100,000 drop. And as if all of that isn't enough, now that we have this info, we can look at all the drops from Baba Yaga, and the picture doesn't really get that much prettier. A giver jewel, you could expect to farm Yaga thousands and thousands of times to get a jewel that's actually somewhat easily craftable, and a jewel that I would argue should be pretty readily dropped from a boss like Baba Yaga at the time that you're there. The lustrous pip opal, still a 1 in 1,000 drop, meaning you could open up 1,000 of these second chance chests and just expect on average to get 1 lustrous pip opal. Now, that is obviously the most extreme example that I was able to find when I was combing through all of these second chance chests, but this is actually something that even applies as early as Arc 1. So Arc 1 has a lot of final bosses like the Jade Oni that actually can drop really rare crowns gear. And what the second chance drop rate preview thing has revealed is that there's actually multiple types of drops that major Arc 1 bosses can drop. So there's these rare items that have like a 1 to 2% chance, things that you might farm a boss for, like Stitch gear that, like people have already known that these are pretty hard to get. But let's say that there are crowns involved, right? Let's say that a boss drops something that you would otherwise purchase with crowns in the crowns shop. Again, real life money. They actually have like a standardized number for this. Who knows how long this number has been in the game? We've only been aware of this drop rate since the Darkmoor update went live, but this number is 1 in 400. That is right. This applies to Meowiardi, this applies to Kattenstein, this applies to Celestial bosses that drop the Sidhe stuff. It is an extremely rare case that you'll ever get something that you could purchase for crowns, but it's so rare that it almost defeats the entire purpose of having a crowns drop in the drop table. This 1 in 400 number is literally the standard across anything that involves a crowns drop. So let's say that the Jade Oni can drop the angelic crowns drop, right? That like, angelic hat or whatever it's called. That's a 1 in 400 chance. If Kattenstein can drop a crowns only drop, or the Spike fight can drop a crowns only drop in Marleybone, 1 in 400, whether you fight the boss, whether you open a chest, a 0.25% chance of getting something that you're still spending some crowns on, especially if you're going the chest route. Now, the good news is, based on my research anyways, I couldn't get a screenshot of this, but I was able to find a Reddit post about this, and people were basically finding that Waterworks gear is a 1 in 12 drop and that Darkmoor gear is a 1 in 20 drop. This seems to be in line with how most uncommon drops from second chance chests work. It could be anywhere from 1 in 10 to 1 in 20. So at the very least, through this transparency, we know that some of the more sought after drops, especially at 60 and 100, aren't that crazy. But I think what this really has done for me is expose a larger conversation that needs to be had about the idea of a rare drop on Wiz. In my opinion, anything rarer than the Stitch drops that we've been used to all these years, things that are for crowns, they need to become a little bit less rare. The whole point of them, in my opinion, is that during your first playthrough, you could get a game-changing drop if you defeat a boss and open up a couple of chests. If you dare to make a purchase on this game, you might be a little bit rewarded for it, right? I think it's really bad game design to have all these really jackpot drops but make them so inexplicably rare then most people will never have an experience with it, right? Shouldn't it feel like, oh, once in a blue moon, you actually get something back just out of pure coincidence? And shouldn't that happen at least once or twice during a playthrough of the full game? I don't know how many fights there are in the game, but let's say there are like 1,000 fights. Is it really like expected that on average, meaning some people will not even get that, you're gonna get like 2 really cool crowns drops, most of which are gonna become irrelevant once you level up a few times anyway? I think it's utterly silly, and also it just makes people not want to interact with farming this boss now that they know that the drop rates are so low. The other thing that I'm very, very concerned about is, of course, this screenshot, right? A 1 in 100,000 drop. I don't believe that most people were farming Baba Yaga for spellproof. In my opinion, it has been pretty common knowledge that Baba Yaga does drop a spellproof jewel. Had people used that info and actually went out of the way to farm this, not gotten it, and now realized that it was an utter waste of time now that they know what the actual drop rate was? Hopefully not. However, if a spellproof opal from a really, really hard boss fight that has a second chance chest only has a 1 in 100,000 drop, then how rare is this jewel to begin with from all the other sources that drop is the next big question. And this is actually my big concern, outside of the fact that you might be a first-time player and never get a really rewarding drop and actually, like, you know, have that contribute to your love for the game. If y'all don't know, a very common place to farm for spellproof jewels and other rare jewels in general are mob fights in Imperia, including the monkey spider. I have a big concern here. If a boss can drop a jewel like that 1 in 100,000 times, what is the actual drop rate for a very easily doable minion fight? And how much of an incentive do you have to farm this without things like botting? We've already seen this become an issue when the drop rates in this game become very stupid with the most recent Darkmoor update. And this is still something that I'm seeing regularly, right? If you want aged Ichor and you don't want to spend the multiple hours that something like this took me, for example, some people decide that the rules don't apply to them and they bot it. There's ways to bot it so you basically don't have to be at your computer, whatever device you're using, just go AFK. Your wizard moves on its own and combs the area and picks up things. Staying in a fight and just spamming an AoE is probably even easier to bot than that. And here's the deal. If you're going to keep drop rates that horrific, then at the end of the day, either you're going to have to deal with the botting or make the drop rates better so the people that aren't botting are not, like, left behind. Let's say some conceivable world, there's a world where spellproof should be that rare. How is it fair that the people that follow the rules have no access to this drop compared to the people that just AFK farm something using things like bots and auto clickers, right? There's literally no enforcement for this whatsoever. Some might even argue, I'm sure we'll see this in the comment section, yo, if the drop rates are that bad, then why shouldn't I cheat? Right? It creates a goddamn mess of a situation that I really think the Wiz just isn't taking seriously. And I think the worst part about all of this is that, like, for example, you might be wondering, how did I get my spellproof jewel? And I actually have a ready source of them, but I get this by actually harvesting things that I paid money for. Jewel Blossom. If y'all don't know, there's a Star Jewel Blossom that you can actually get. They're a very rare drop from a pack. It's called the Farley's Gardening Pack. Actually a pretty expensive pack, and you're not like guaranteed like anything really, but yes, from this you could get a seed called a Jewel Star Blossom. And now that we have the pack preview rate, you could also tell 1 in 71. Meaning, on average, I'm opening up 500 crowns worth of packs 71 times to get one of these. And I only have a few of these, and that's where I get my spellproof jewels. But now, I'm starting to see this world where this is a very rare drop that some people pay crowns for, and that's because they want to follow the rules, and other people auto-click and bot for it. Like, that's kind of crazy. And the worst part about all of this is that the spellproof jewel is the only example that I'm aware of at the moment. But if there's ways to, like, find ways to exploit around everything else, you create, like, this little crazy system where either you follow the rules and have to pay, or you don't, and there's no enforcement at all. And the status quo is just that these things are just super inaccessible for most people that play this game. This is a very long-winded way of saying there needs to be a two-pronged solution from Wiz. One, if this has really been happening, as in such rare drops have been majority gotten by people that are just exploiting, botting, or auto-clicking, they need a widespread and retroactive, as in going back in time, way to address this. And also, I think they need to be a little bit more humane with some of these drop rates. I feel like maybe an audit of some sort. Maybe this is based on an outdated model, because why in the world are some of these so rare, right? What does 1 in 400 for a crowns drop from an Arc 1 boss even mean at this point? Right, I have a feeling a lot of this is because, oh, level 50 was the max at one time. Then it kind of makes sense that you might farm an end of game boss, not an end of world boss, but an end of game boss that many times. But these days, you're honestly only fighting bosses a few times on your, you know, first playthrough on that wizard. So I think they do need to revisit some of these rarer drops, so they do show up in your inventory a little bit more. So yes, hopefully with this info that's available to players, maybe more people are aware of it now. I really do think it's on Wiz to actually, you know, clamp down on some of the botting and exploiting, and maybe also make it a little bit more rewarding to farm things for people that don't do those methods. That's a real big takeaway I hope the devs, if they're watching this, get from this video. But I'd love to hear y'all's opinions as well. What do y'all think of these drop rates? Were y'all even aware that they got this crazy? And do y'all think that we have been living in a game where the people that follow the rules just have been left behind because of these drop rates being so crazy? I look forward to reading all of y'all's thoughts on this. I've really been thinking about this a lot, so I wanted to make a full-blown video. So hopefully y'all enjoyed. Stay awesome, y'all. See y'all soon. And yeah.